Bad language coming at ya. Don't watch if you're a kid. What's going on, you dirty bunch of chats? It's the Wino with another Ultimate Fighter review, episode 6. And tell you what, I enjoyed this one. Mostly because of the fight. God damn, that fight was an absolute cracker. But the build-up to it, I mean, it wasn't the most entertaining thing in the world, but as the season's gone on so far, one of the better build-ups. We had some pranks to start it off. It was a bit of fun. I got to say, Ortega, it seemed a bit weird that he's like, oh, we're doing this to shut Volkanovski's mouth. It's like, that's not why you do the pranks, man. Like, you do it to bust some balls. You do it to lighten the mood. You do it to have a bit of fun. But Volkanovski seemed to take it that way, and it was good to see him, laugh it off and go, yeah, you got me. Good prank there. So they put up his car on blocks and said, here's your new transportation, and had a bunch of donkeys and miniature horses in Volkanovski team shirts. And it's like, yeah, bit of lightness to start off the episode. Maybe we'll see a bit more, not drama necessarily, which is where it gets interesting. And that was in their tough flashback this week, one of the biggest drama moments ever, tough season 5, when Marlon Sims fought, I forget his name, but in the backyard, the old backyard fight. That takes me back. But yeah, back to this episode. So yeah, they did the pranks. Maybe we'll see more of those going on. And the rest of the preamble to the fight was, it was all right. I felt like we saw a little more training than we usually do, although it wasn't working skills. It was a lot of shadow boxing and hitting pads and stuff like that, which is like, it's all right. But it was interesting to see both guys seem to come from decent camps, because when you saw Ricky's home video when he was in the jiu-jitsu class teaching the kids, the person who was running the class looked to me like Alex Morono. So it's like, if he's training with Morono, that's some good teammate. That's some good teammate. That's a good teammate that you got right there. And then in Dan's home footage, you see him go into his sparring session. It looked to me like Cub Swanson was on the apron with his gloves on. So I was like, Cub's in his team. So both guys seem to come from good teams. Look, they both seem like nice guys. They both seem like they're decent. It was interesting, just before the fight started, Ricky's like, I'm a really nice guy, really happy guy. Dan seemed to back that up, because he's like, I like Ricky. This is just business. But Ricky said, yeah, I'm all nice and stuff, but, there's the fighting's the dark side of me. And I'm like, ooh, getting very Jungian there, Ricky. Getting very Jungian. In case you don't know, Carl Jung has the concept of the shadow in psychology, where he says every man has a dark part of themselves, and if they just try to ignore that, it'll kind of fester within them, and they'll project it onto other people, and it will lead to destruction, whereas you need to incorporate it into yourself, into your personality. And it seems like he's incorporated his shadow into something very healthy. 1, martial arts that give you discipline and respect and everything like that. But 2, it's led him on an actual career path. So, yes, good on you for incorporating your Jungian shadow, Ricky. But, fuck it. We're not here for all the fluff. The fight started, and goddamn, that fight was a lot of fun. Like, it just they started banging straight off the bat, and goddamn, Dan landed a huge combination really, really close to the start. Pretty much just wing and left hook, right hooks. And he got that a few times throughout the fight. The biggest criticism I had of Ricky was, like, he doesn't seem to have much defense there. He just keeps his head straight, and he doesn't seem to put up much of a guard. Like, when they'd separate, he'd shell up like that. But as soon as the punches started flying, he'd just stand in there and fucking cop a bunch. But yeah, Dan landed some of those good shots. Ricky landed his good shots too throughout that round. setting up a lot of his combinations off a body kick, which was interesting. Like, that's something I noticed about Ricky. He could really use those kicks quickly. So he'd quite often land a real solid body kick with his right leg and then launch into some straight punches from there. He had a nice stiff jab, and there was even a combination where, like, he was throwing some punches and just threw up a real quick head kick. It didn't seem like it had a lot on it, but I was like, fuck, this is some quick leg work that he's using. And he landed some real solid knees in the clinch too. So I thought his body work would be what won it for him going forward, but didn't end up being the case. Dan, like I said, landed those big punches. He landed big punches throughout that round, and he went for a takedown. Ricky defended it at first, but Dan ended up getting the takedown in the end. And yeah, look, just on punches landed and the significance, I think it was pretty obvious that Dan won that round. And in the second round, look, honestly, I edged it to Dan, but it was a super close round. And even when I was watching, I was like, look, that could easily go to Ricky. And it was much of the same starting out. Dan landing some of them big hooks and whatnot. But I think what ended up winning it for Ricky on the judges' cards is he landed a real solid combination. I think it started with a left hook. Going off counters too. Like when Dan had throw something, Ricky would always counter and quite often like put a lot into it and landed nice clean counter. And this particular combination, he threw a left hook, really landed hard, and then came in, throwing multiple more punches. It seemed to like really back Dan up, and then Dan kind of went in on the clinch and Ricky jumped into a triangle. The triangle was never really there, to be honest with you. And then Dan got some top time, but then they got back up. That's the other thing about this fight. Like, they were building it up that like Ricky would be the superior striker, and Dan's all just about coming forward and getting the takedown. But Dan showed he's got some really good striking, and Ricky showed he's got good takedown defense and then good grappling once it actually hit the ground. And yeah, so Ricky going for that triangle. Maybe the judges liked that, even though it was never really in. Dan didn't do a whole lot from the top from there. And then they get back up, punch a little more, and then Ricky dived in on a leg. Once again, he didn't really have any submission going at this point, but he was deep in on that leg and kind of controlling Dan's whole body position with it. Dan smartly kept the leg crooked, so Ricky couldn't, get a knee bar or a heel hook. All he kind of had going for him was like toe hold, like maybe an ankle lock, but he couldn't really get them going either. So it was a super close round. I thought Dan maybe landed the strongest shots and a few more of them on the feet. But like I said, Ricky did have that huge moment where he seemed to back him up and rock him a little. And then the other parts in the grappling, even though he was kind of on bottom for longer, he did more with the time on the ground. So by the time it did hit the third round, as we know in Ultimate Fighter, if it goes to the third round, it's sudden victory, and Ricky completely won this one. Landed a good shot to open up the round, and then Dan kind of dived in on a takedown. Ricky switched it, and Dan went for a guillotine, but by this point, Ricky was already basically in half guard on the top, and it's going to be super hard to finish a guy in a guillotine when he's in half guard, especially because it was an arm-in guillotine. You're not going to be able to get the leverage. You need to push your chest up rather than lean backwards and yank on the neck when you got an arm-in guillotine. And if they're in half guard on top, yeah, that leverage is just not going to come. So Ricky stayed calm, got out of that guillotine. It was never really a threat, and then just, stayed in control from there. Got to a point where they got towards the cage and Dan looked like he was about to shrimp his way up, but Ricky smartly kind of moved straight back to his back and got one hook in. It was the outside hook, so Dan had the side slash back on the cage, but Ricky jumped on the back there and got the outer hook in, so around his side and hooked on the leg, and started attacking a guillotine. And you heard some really good corner advice from Hannah Gracie in Ortega's team, giving it to Dan, and he's like, okay, stop trying to get up now, drop back into it, and then turn. And Dan did that, and he almost pulled off the turn, but Ricky showed some really great grappling and was able to maneuver his body and kind of reassert his position on the back. And from then on, most of the rest of the round was just Ricky on Dan's back attacking a rear naked choke. And Dan kept trying to turn into him. Ricky had the body triangle in for most of the time. Dan looked kind of like he might be able to swivel out of it and whatnot, but Ricky moved with him really well and controlled it for pretty much the rest of that round. The last minute, Dan did turn it around and get a bit of time on top. He threw a punch or two, but didn't really get much through. Ricky ended up getting back to the feet pretty quick once it was switched, and then Dan dived in on a guillotine again, but Ricky rolled with it well, and they ended up in a kind of, well, it's not a 50-50 position, because 50-50 is when your legs are entangled, but like almost like a 50-50, like their bodies splayed out in opposite directions, but Dan holding on to Ricky's neck, but Ricky turned that back around, got on top, and then ended the round throwing heavy blows. So controlling the round for almost its entirety and then ending it with heavy ground and pound, and Dan not really doing anything else. It was clear that round went to Ricky, and that was the fight. It was a fucking banger of the fight. Banger of a fight. Both guys, yeah, just giving it their all, throwing a lot of shit, kind of like balls to the wall, not worrying about defense. And we got to see good both striking and grappling. It was a really good display of mixed martial arts. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with that episode, and let's hope they keep going on like this. I'm the wino. Catch you next week. Actually, I'll catch you on Sunday for McGregor vs. Poirier. That's going to be fun. See you then.